What do Kafka's nightmares, the zone from Roadside Picnic, and a house that's bigger inside than outside have in common? Right, none of them let you escape. Today we are looking at 3 books that invented the spirit of Backrooms a century earlier. And it's not just books. The buzz around 20-year-old director of Backrooms hits the exact same nerve, the feeling that a space is familiar, but something is off. Too quiet, too long, too identical. That's actually a word for this, kinopsia, the creepy atmosphere of a place that's usually bustling, but is now abandoned and quiet. It fits our liminal spaces perfectly. Today we are discussing 3 books that create exactly the same feeling. A trap, a maze, anxiety with no visible source, rules you don't know. You are inside a system that has no exceptions, and it has no intention of letting you go. Let's get into it. Let's start with the main patient. Franz Kafka didn't write horrors. He wrote about office life, and somehow that turned out to be terrifying. Confession: Kafka is really hard to read. I love his The Metamorphosis. A man wakes up as a giant insect and mostly thinks about how he is getting late to work. This is genius, sad and funny at the same time. But the trial, literally, I felt like someone that got into Backrooms and couldn't find the way out. Literally. Every page is an endless yellow corridor. You keep walking and there is no way out, just more and more doors. That feeling of powerlessness against a structure that you cannot understand. That's the Backrooms a century earlier. Brief plot. On his 30th birthday, the protagonist is arrested. No one says why, no one says who's judging him. The entire novel is one lone attempt to find a single door that leads outside. Nothing makes sense, and it's deeply unsettling and creepy. This is basically Backrooms mechanics. 600 million square miles of randomly generated empty rooms you are trapped in. Kafka's version is endless offices instead, but the principle is the same. The scale is so absurd that escape becomes statistically impossible. The Metamorphosis is easy to read. You woke up as a bug, now let's deal with this. The trial is a slow suffocation with no single villain. Nobody wants to hurt you personally. The system is built so that it doesn't need a villain anymore. Fun fact: Kafka actually worked as a lawyer for a workers' insurance institute. He spent his career watching people get hurt on the job and then get chewed up by the bureaucratic system. That was his daily Backrooms. Add the castle to this. The protagonist spends the entire book trying to reach an institution he can physically see from the village, but can never actually get inside. The castle is the Backrooms in reverse. You are trapped outside. If Kafka had lived to see customer support hold music, "Your call is so important to us, you're calling number 47," he wouldn't have had to invent anything. Reality caught up with him. Kafka wrote horror about helplessness inside a system that doesn't care about you. 100 years later, the exactly same anxiety produced the Backrooms as a cultural phenomenon. Its creators have openly said it. A product of society's exhaustion with industrial monoculture, soulless offices, parking garages. Kafka just got there a century earlier. From the office maze to a maze in a mysterious zone with capital Z. Roadside Picnic, written by Soviet authors Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, is actually the first book to spawn an entire genre. Every film, book and video game about the zone and stalkers traces back to this one novel. The Stalker video game series ran with the concept. Can you imagine this? One text from 1971 and the entire genre is still running. The Stalker game developers actually had to change the spelling of their title because of copyright issues tied to the word Stalker. The plot in 2 sentences. Something unexplained happens on Earth and it leaves behind a zone, a place that runs on rules nobody understands. Artifacts inside can grant wishes or kill you. Here is what I want to underline. In both The Zone by Strugatsky's and in Backrooms, there is a space that seems to have a will of its own. Is it angry or mean? Technically, no. The zone doesn't want to kill you. It's not angry and it's not kind. It simply exists on its own rules that you will actually never fully learn. Dying in the zone is never an act of aggression. It's just a side effect of you being somewhere you are not supposed to be. Exactly like the backrooms, the monsters there are not hunting you specifically. You just walked into the place with different laws. And that's exactly why the zone is such a brilliant psychological device. It doesn't judge people, it reveals them. Everybody brings into the zone his or her own desires, fears, greed, love, despair, and the zone just reflects it and amplifies it. The space doesn't change people. The zone is a perfect mirror. And so is the backrooms. What I love about this book is that it refuses to give you a clean moral. I genuinely love and quote constantly the famous closing line: "Happiness for everyone, free, and let no one be left out." It reads simultaneously as a prayer and as a confession that even standing face to face with a miracle, a person cannot articulate what he or she really wants. Okay, you have probably heard the title, even if you haven't read it, but it's the closest thing to the backrooms as a physical object. A family moves into the house. It turns out the house is bigger inside than outside. Corridors appear where they shouldn't. Rooms lead into other rooms that shouldn't exist. At one point, the characters try to measure the house from inside, and they get different number every single time. The house isn't just bigger inside, it's shifting, because the house itself seems to breathe. But the wildest part is the form of the book itself. It's a maze packed into the shape of a novel. The text rotates, trembles, vanishes into darkened pages. Some pages you have to physically rotate to read. Danilevsky was writing it at a moment when the internet was still new, so he wanted to catch this feeling. He wanted readers to wander through the text, lose the thread, forget where he or she was a minute ago, just like being online. So essentially the entire novel is the backrooms without a single yellow corridor. Nobody tells you about the maze. You are dropped straight into it, book in hand, and you physically have to rotate it just to keep from getting lost. So 3 books, 3 ways to get lost. It's kind of funny that the thing anonymous users invented on 4chan in 2019 out of one photo of an abandoned furniture store turned out to be just a new name for something literature had been articulating all century: the fear of being trapped inside the space. Physical, bureaucratic, metaphorical, metaphysical, that's bigger than you, indifferent to you, and has no intention of letting you go. So next time someone tells you the classics are boring and irrelevant, just give them Kafka and lock the door. And if you know other books that give you this exact feeling, just drop them in the comments. Let's build the library of liminal horror together.